Welcome back from the break. This is the front line, very interesting things happening behind the curtains here. But we have in the studio Honorable Major General Mugisha Muntu, Honorable Lydia Mutende, and Honorable Joshua Anywarach as our guest, and then with Mr. Ofono Opondo, not yet Honorable, and he's a frontliner. We are into our last segment, but we need to touch on the issue of what came off the retreat of the, was it a retreat, or the meeting of cabinet, and which was released by the minister in charge of information, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, and to the effect that government has taken, cabinet has taken a decision to start the process of mergers of authorities, several of them. And the question that that begs in one's mind as a first is really the question of, was there an analysis, was there a research, was there some survey done that would inform, the rationale for each of them to be whether disbanded or merged? Let me start with you, Honorable Joshua Anywarach, on that. What do you make of this proposal? Do you think it is workable?
Well, before I start on that, I think if I leave OO to go, without responding to...
I haven't talked about your kneeling for the speaker. So why don't you let me...
The kneeling of the speaker is a different matter.
Kneeling for the speaker.
The kneeling for the speaker is a different matter.
When OO makes a very serious, warning about the youth, that issues about this country is not necessarily only about the youth and so on. I think...
Respond to that in 20 seconds, very fast.
I grew up in a family where my father was a total disciplinarian. You must come home at this time. This is the time to stop playing at someone's home now. Come back home. And no making noise at night, no whistling, all those, rules. But there came a time when my brothers, elder brothers, who I think they felt now they're mature enough, would even do the unthinkable, smoking in the presence of my dad, and my dad would be complaining. I said, no, Mzee, we're now mature to decide. You raise us up to this level. Please, some level of independence for us to decide. Certainly, that's why we had the Kadogos. If you ask General Muntu, were there no Kadogos when they went to the bush? They were there. So never write off these young people so much. But naturally, as you phase out, as you age up, you must be ready for transition. Actually, we should now be speaking about transition. You should start it. I would be happy if these days you are so open-minded sometimes. Please suggest that in your echelon of power, the center of power, you people should begin open discussion about transition, about the post-Museveni era. There should be no fear about it. Because when
there's fear?
When there's no sense of direction.
We don't discuss on the front line, but we discuss in our...
Well, I'm suggesting on the front line, go and discuss in the back line.
Like Uganda after President Museveni?
Something like that. Even now, we should begin talking about what the Honorable Muchitale talks about a lot.
He discusses
national dialogue.
National dialogue.
Let's speak openly. People need to heal. There are a lot of careers.
Yeah, that's it.
So now, let's come to my issue. I think when the president released a letter, was it last year or early this year?
Suggestion last year.
Yes, we had a discussion about it. In the letter, he was concentrating on entities who are consumers of money and those who are makers of money. And said those who are making money can remain. Those who are consuming can either, be reverted, disbanded, or they be collapsed back to parent ministries or sectors. Now, that time I pointed out, and even now I'm pointing, that it was more of a political seeking of opinion from the Prime Minister and copied to the Vice President. But in the tone of the letter, it was almost more of a presidential directive, that this is a sense of direction we want us to take. We want to disband some of these entities, some of these parastatals and enterprises. Now, the question I raised was there scientific research whose findings and the reports the president based on Now, an anecdotal decision, a decision without, which is not backed by scientific findings, can boomerang. And that's why you see they gave a report initially. The Land Commission was supposed to actually be wiped off. Now they're saying they will revert it to the Ministry of Lands.
But isn't the Land Commission a constitutional body?
It's a constitutional body.
So you need a constitutional amendment.
That's what I'm going to. Now, when you have, for example, a Land Commission, which is a constitutional body, you have a Land Commission that may not be a money-making entity, but for the safeguard of the interests of persons and also public land and so on, management and any other business and so on. You don't have to take that commission. We should, now is autonomous, independent, makes its own decision. It's even, by the way, in a nutshell, it's a legal entity. It can sue and be sued. To the parent ministry, with all land issues now we have in the country. Another funny one, the Uganda, I think, Citizenship and Immigration Department, which is very autonomous under the Sector Ministry of Internal Affairs, is not only being collapsed back to the Internal Affairs, but they are taking it to Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs.
Which one?
Immigration Department. Yes, that is what they gave out. Now, what another concern that I have is, if you are going to collapse these entities, talk about UNRA. How much loan do we have under UNRA? What is the level of implementation? What will happen to the disbursements which have been undergoing? Talk about budget. Now, in terms of budget, both what we call development budget and recurrent budget, we have already given money to these entities. Are we going for environment? Are we going for reappropriation? And where they have acquired even like vehicles and so on, the multitude of vehicles, if you talk
about assets, maybe.
Assets, yes. Are you going to take them back to the ministries, and how will they manage them when actually you have all these employees unemployed? Actually, even you have issues of people who are going to be unemployed. Now, finally, on that merger issue, Charlie, I have no problem. We need to have the merger. It is what I even thought of much earlier. Some of the entities have been so arrogant. For example, National Forest Authority. The arrogance with which they finished the forest in OC, that is in Zombo district. The arrogance with which they finished the forest cover in Lendu forest. And they built a very funny hospital in Zeu sub-county. They used to run on our roads from Zombo district onto this Nebi road. You are supposed to pay 8%. We would ask us district council. By that time, I was a district councillor. They would always want to shoot you. They will come armed, guarding people who are logging. Now, I would even pray and say, when will this NFA be disbanded? Unfortunately, it's being disbanded after it has been used
Joshua,
now.
Isn't that a personal challenge other than it's the issue, the broader fundamental issue?
Yes, of course, I'm pointing out. That is true. I pointed out, but also that is one of the issues with those bodies that we had. But finally, when they're telling us that they will save about 988 billion, and a person from public service comes up and says, because districts are understaffed, some of these people who will be unemployed, we will use them to staff the districts which are understaffed by 35% or between 60 to 75%. And then the money that we're going to save will help us cause, harmonization in the salary disparities. Then I'm like, okay, are we going to be happy that we are saving money, which should have resulted into delivery of services to Ugandans, better services to Ugandans, or we are going to have this money saved when we disband these entities, but make sure that these monies actually go still into consumables, into actually, recurrent budgets. Okay. And now, as we talk now, yesterday there was almost a fight in Kasese district.
Why?
Where they were having a district council sitting to divide Kasese into 4, and most members do not want. Now, if most members of the council did not want, there was almost a big deployment there. Now, I'm like, okay, As we are here disbanding entities, we are creating
You're
more
creating
districts.
more districts.
Now,
So
the money
are you
we're
saying-
saving.
Are you saying districts should also be collapsed?
You know, actually, if
Should
you
that be-
if you want to address the economic situation in Uganda, you should not only do away with the public
Authorities, and,
public
commissions?
administration costs. You should even do austerity measures where necessary. Yes, that's what I would
Okay,
recommend.
Good. Do you think that the method being employed, being used, or being suggested as announced from cabinet is the best, or is disbandment, collapsing, merger the best solution to the problem we have of efficiency?
I said that earlier on that our problem is partly qualitative leadership. I think it would have been better for the MP, if he hasn't read the documents related to the proposal of government, to concede and say, I need to read more. But let me say this. Where did this begin? First of all, there has been public outcry that there is a lot of duplication, there is a lot of wastage, there is a lot of creation of entities without due study. And consequently, we have multiplicity
And they are disbanding without due study.
of government entities. That came up after the election of 2016, when we went for the NRM caucus retreat. The new members of parliament, particularly the older ones, who had studied the government, who had been in the government, been in parliament before, raised it. After they returned, cabinet and permanent secretaries went back for the retreat. It was in the meeting, in the retreat of cabinet and permanent secretaries, that resolution was made to go and study the entire government and give cabinet recommendation. Consequently, that retreat, under the direction of the chairman of the president, directed the head of public service, Mr. John Mitana, to return to Kampala and constitute a multi-ministerial committee, multi-sectoral committee, if need be, even get services of experts to study. Mr. John Mitara did constitute interministerial committee and also invited experts in public sector management and restructuring. Under the chairmanship of the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Public Service, Catherine Tusingwire, the last 1.5 years, they have been holding back and forth meeting with different government and non-government entities. And they wrote a draft report, which they considered in their technical committee. Eventually, when they passed, it was presented to cabinet. As a matter of fact, for the last 3 months or so, cabinet has been inviting entities which the technical committee had identified either for disbandment or for merger or for collapsing or whatever you want to call. And each of those entities made presentation before cabinet. Eventually, cabinet took the decision that was announced yesterday. Now, this is simply the beginning. My understanding from what I have been briefed from cabinet is that this is a proposal of government. We anticipate that there is going to be, most likely, a government white paper. Secondly, we expect many of these entities, they are those that are established by law. Majority of them.
By an act.
By acts of parliament. In those circumstances, if the government white paper recommends that they should be merged, they should be disbanded, we expect
Parliament to handle.
We expect that legislation will be brought, amendments will be brought to dissolve them. Now, what happens to the assets or the liabilities they have? The normal practice of government and in law is that those are transferred, are taken over by where they have been taken.
Actually,
there are those.
There is a process that can do that.
Yes, there are those that have been created by statutory orders and so on and so forth. So we expect that now that the government has made its decision, its report known, we expect that the Prime Minister, for example, will go to Parliament and formally table this proposal, and then the debate will ensue.
Is there a timeline?
No,
timeline
for now there's no timeline. Now we expect that once that debate begins in the government, and by government I mean the big government, not just cabinet, we expect then the timeline can be done. They can then say, where do we start?
Okay.
And then I have seen comments. There are people who are saying, now that you are collapsing UNRWA, you are collapsing Uganda electricity generation company, blah, blah, blah. Yes, the rationale will be provided. If eventually there is a requirement for further study, for example, if it is directed or recommended by Parliament, that would be done. Okay. But also, the other the important issue to note, I have seen people who are saying, if you are doing so, also reduce Parliament, also reduce Cabinet. I think it will
reduce the number of MPs.
Yes, reduce. I would want to see Anwaraj coming up with that, because that certainly would require a constitutional amendment. Now, I think it would be good practice.
It would be prudent.
Prudent that we move cautiously, slowly, but not trying to reduce everything in one go. Otherwise, we can choke. We can choke.
We can choke. What is the primary motivation of government to do this?
To improve on efficiency.
There are three issues. One,
to reduce on wastage.
One, harmonization.
Yes.
Two, remove duplication. Three, remove
address inefficiency,
wastage, in the hope that when you do those four things, you will create efficiency, you will save resources which then can go into one, actual delivery of public service, but also deal with issues of remuneration and welfare of those that will remain in the service of government across the board.
Honorable Lydia, do you think that those reasons for which this process is being undertaken can address the problem? Yeah. Or you think that something else can be done? For example, some people have said, apart from the demand that also reduce the number of cabinet, reduce the number of MPs, that actually fight corruption, because we lose almost up to 1 trillion a year. So fight corruption and you will get that 900. In fact, the authorities, the commissions are employing many people that pay taxes as well and contribute to the same economy. So what's your view?
I think from what you are saying, we can only achieve what you are asking about. The reduction shouldn't be only start with authorities and institutions. If we are trying to look at what do we want as Uganda, what's the end state, then it means that we should be speaking to either the Vision 2040 and see whether we've been able are we on track? And in many countries that are doing reviews in their countries, they've been able to put together a national strategy. There is a difference, Charles, between planning and speculating from a strategy. Where do we want to see Uganda in 2040? That should then inform how do we now get there. And if that's what we want to do, I think this is the spirit. The spirit is in the right direction, that we should be able to be frugal with our resources. How do we get frugal to our resources? Is that we should be able to account for every resource or every deployment that is made to the civil service. So I think this is the right direction. But also, apart from merging institutions, there are ministries that should be able to be aligned together to give particular deliverables. The small experience I have seen in other countries, there is a close relationship between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministries of Defense, which are also partly ministries of what? Of security. Those three ministries in Uganda should be able to inform our foreign policy, but also deal with issues of our national interests and our own threats. But in Uganda, you see people normally, even in agencies, working in silos. What other colleagues have said here, you realize that the reason why they're talking about issues of actually reporting mechanisms, the issues of command and control, even in ministries, you find the leader of an agency does not want to report to the line ministry or to the accounting officer who is the minister, or I mean the PS or the minister.
But if it is not provided for, why?
No, it should be. If I'm heading an agency under Ministry of Water and Natural Resources, it goes without saying that I'm accountable to the PS, who is the chief technocrat of the ministry, and also the political head, who is the minister. But now people have now criticized their agencies. If you have resources, then the politics start. Then and that it has also to do with the personalities that have been heading these ministries and then the resources. So the level of duplication now comes in because you're not building your synergies to deliver.
Can we also suspect that some of the PSs, some of the ministers are actually yearning to have more control over this money?
It's not a question of yearning. It's an issue of mandate. It's an issue of mandate. It's not even a question of yearning. It's an issue of
mandate is provided by under the law. If the law does not provide, then you don't have the mandate.
The mandate of a ministry is created by the statutory and government. Ministry, I'll give an example of Ministry of Water, but you can also talk about Ministry of Energy. All agencies that are dealing with these ministries are aligned under ministry. They have their reporting mechanisms. But if they have now found challenges in command and control, in the reporting mechanism, because every ministry has a political head. Yeah. Even if I'm a head of an agency, I'm not the political head of that agency. I'm a technocrat. So if they found difficulties in reporting, in command and control, in management of resources, duplication of services, it's not working for Uganda. It's not delivering. Then let's be able to merge them and be able to make them have command and control and supervision and deliverables, and then we'll be able to look at even performance. I think it's in the right direction. And when you are talking, I realize that actually they are not talking about time frames. If many of these these decisions are going to go to Parliament through and doing the legal frameworks, restructuring, realigning, then when you say that you are going to be merged and you're going to lose, the morale of the people who are working, this is an issue, the motivation. So you should not leave them in limbo. They're not going to go to their computers and look for other jobs, and then you'll be losing out. So there should be time frames for this. It is on or it's not on. Okay.
General, your last word on this. Do you think that this is the best approach that is being suggested?
I think the biggest problem is in the timing itself. Because generally the environment in the country is of a nature that frugal management of resources is alien to the regime. So the question is, even if you disband like UNRWA and you move it back to the Ministry of Works, is there more efficiency in the Ministry of Works? Is there a culture of transparency in terms of managing resources?
And accountability.
And accountability. That's the question. Because if there isn't that, how are you solving the problem?
More of the same.
You would rather concentrate on UNRWA, and if there are weaknesses there, strengthen them. And if there's a problem in a reporting mechanism, streamline that. But in the ministries themselves, from what I hear, there are some issues where you find that even a PS is not reporting to a minister. He's reporting above the minister. So are you going to disband the ministries as well?
You merge them.
So you are dealing with a complicated situation. Unless you resolve the root cause of the problems, you're only going to be dealing with the symptoms.
Charlie, let me
I need us now to do just 30 seconds each. I'm starting with you. What do you expect of the president's upcoming address? Another address? Is it on? When is it? Is it confirmed?
I want to confirm, unless he changes. It's Saturday.
What time?
7:30, and is focusing really more on security issues.
So this time it is mostly on security?
Mainly on security issues. My guess is that perhaps he has been provided with the new facts on the issues, or because of the responses from the public, he would want to clarify and explain on the measures he had outlined earlier on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it will be the president alone addressing the nation?
Well, the media will be there. We shall be there.
No, I mean the person addressing. For us, we are just
yes,
gatherers.
Yes. Yeah, he is free. It is him who has called and is free to call on any other person.
One hopes he takes a shorter time this time.
now, I will relay that concern. I will relay that concern to him that General Muntu says.
Nobody can keep attention for 4 hours or 3 or even 2.
I will relay that concern to him that General Muntu has a complaint. Please make it shorter.
No, not just General Muntu alone. even the Bazukulo. The Bazukulo was saying that please don't take us back to the history that is not related to what killed Kawesi, the history that is not related to what killed Kirumira.
Point noted.
Okay, good. Oh, thanks for that. Joshua, what is your expectation of Saturday?
Before I say my expectations,
Yes,
I
very
think this is
quickly.
important. We don't need to miss this point.
Yeah.
Just because somebody has a divergent view from yours doesn't mean you should demean what he does. Because I said government has no scientific research they're basing on handling the process. Or said, you see the kind of leaders we have. And you saw him gambling with the time frame. He doesn't even have specifics of if somebody has been paid, because director in an agency right now receives 17 million. But a director in the parent ministry or the line ministry receives 1.5 million. How do you harmonize? By now, if you had done a scientific research, we should be harmonizing that once we are collapsing an agency back to the ministry, what will happen to the payment? We don't want the Atwine situation where it took Atwine to be transferred to Ministry of Health, that the salaries for public, for permanent secretaries had to be increased.
I thought that process was already in the offing.
So you see,
I'm telling
that process was already. The little I know, Honorable Joshua, the little I know is that process was already in the offing, and then when the new PSs were appointed, they just implemented it. But it was not because only of
that is a good damage control. Two, actually, this whole merger should not be a political cleansing tool. You remember, when you came to power, they did currency reform. You know what they did? If you had
cancel the 2 zeros.
1 million, you cancel the 2 zeros. Then
10,
you pay a person at 30% rate. And they said, no, currency reform, we will be using coins. And coins work for about 3 years. Now, where are the coins?
Okay.
Under SAPS.
Your expectation of Saturday.
Structural adjustment program.
Honorable Joshua,
Structural adjustment program. You said this is the ideal and so on. Under that cover, they did what they call self-enrichment. And it did not work. So even this one, we want you to, it's something we appreciate, but don't use it as a damage control, political cleansing, and later you see, because even they have not even suggested which laws we should begin.
Honorable Joshua, can I cancel you? Can I cancel you about OO? Don't worry about OO. You will come back.
So in summary,
you see, let me tell you this. You remember, OO said that we need, one of the issues that the president was addressing was encouraging tolerance in the country. Then he mentioned and said, we shall not tolerate. You see the contradiction. We shall not tolerate the youth who do this and this.
So what I want to hear.
Don't misrepresent what I said. You play back.
What I want to hear. What I want to hear is the president's address.
So don't worry, Joshua. What is your expectation of Saturday?
My expectation is, one, security be addressed with action points.
Good.
And then I want to hear the president say OTT is removed and even the mobile money tax is gone.
Is the OTT part of the security issue?
I mean, it's one of insecurity. Actually,
but I thought it is made in a law, so it is Parliament to remove, not President.
Yeah, but
you made it in a law.
That is excess duty. That's the excess duty amendment, and it's coming to Parliament soon.
Okay.
So please.
Okay.
You want the President to hijack?
Thank you so much, Honorable Lydia. What is your expectation of Saturday? The President's address on Saturday.
I think the President should be able to expound more on issues of security and going forward. But it may not come up Saturday, but something else is to go back and see on families that have had losses, we need to look at them and have special programs for them. Even if the legal path, they've not got justice through the legal, because people have not been arrested or victims or suspects, but at least we need to find a way of supporting families that have lost their loved ones.
Okay. Finally, General Muntu, your expectation of, apart from timing, the time that, the duration that the address is supposed to take, what is your expectation?
You should really seriously deal with the panic that is within the regime itself and the security agencies. Because the thing they are doing is simply out of panic. It can't be anything else. So they need to sit back and ask themselves, why are they acting in such wild way against the citizens? They don't have tellers. They cannot go close themselves in a room and sort themselves out. But deal with that question, the political questions. Because if they don't deal with those political questions, I don't think we've seen the worst yet. Okay.
Thank you so much. For me, as a Ugandan who is also interested in security, my expectation is that the president should not act in haste, should not act, through the knee-jerk reaction, as they say. If something happens, even if it is a crisis, there should be an organized and well put together, report, and then the president addresses the nation on it. Whether it takes 1 hour or 2 hours, it should be on that point, not too much history. Honorable Joshua Nywarach, Mr. Ofono Pondo, Honorable Major General Mugisha Muntu, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, thank you so much. This is the Frontline, and from the team here, the technical team, all of you, and my producers, thank you so much. And out there to you, the person who sits in their sitting room to watch this program every Thursday, 10 to midnight. We appreciate your time, and because of you, this program is. Thank you so much. Until next week, God bless you. May God bless Uganda.